Hi guys, Jay Smith here. Welcome to the AskGolfNut channel. Today we're doing a JPX923 finalised comparison as to what all these now 5 irons that Mizuno offer in the JPX series. Who are they aimed at? Who are they targeted towards? What golfers can and cannot get away with using each of them? And when it comes to their fittings, which one should they be looking for? Which one could they get away with? That kind of idea, which one they could be blended with and stuff like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to be hitting some shots on the old simulator and capturing the information for the group of them, and then looking at the differences between all 5 clubs. I'm going to be limiting the speed down to about 80 miles an hour because remember this is the JPX range, so with the possible exception of the Tour, which is more of the player side of things, we are looking at generally the slightly slower swing speeds going for a JPX series rather than the full-on 90 mile an hour plus swingers when it comes to a 7-iron going down the pro side of things. So right, let's go get the simulator going, let's get data sets rolling, and let's do the JPX923 hot metal first. Hot metal in my hands, that used to be the largest one of the lot. HL has now come in, high launch. That's got slightly bigger everything when it comes to it, but it's a different beast and we'll get to that one in a minute. So hot metal, this is the, should we say, the distance inspired game improvement iron. This is 28.5 degrees for a 7-iron. Now that is fairly strong, and yes, when it comes to lofts has got stronger as the time has gone on, and they've done that because obviously they're trying to make lower further back CG, springier faces and stuff like that, so they do have to keep loft under control, if not the ball would go to the moon. So hashtag high launch. This one has got the half decent thickness when it comes to top lines, sole thickness, blade lengths, offset is there. It's not horrendous, but it's definitely there. And so yeah, this is going to be the one that's going to be giving you the most help. Now I've got full reviews of all of these on my channel. By all means, every single time I come to one, I'll stick the full review up on there. If you want to know about forgiveness, if you want to know about detailed information, pop up there every single time I flick over to have a full in-depth look. Right, let's go hit this a few times. Let's go gain some data from it. Let's go flick over to the Hot Metal Pro after that, see what the differences are, then the high launch, the forwards, the tour, you got the idea. Let's go give this one a hit, and then we'll skip over and see what the comparisons are. Okay, so all those shots now hit. Let's go flick over to the Hot Metal Pro. Let's go see the differences between Hot Metal Pro and Hot Metal, see what the differences in size looks, and then we'll hit a load of shots and see what the differences in performance are. Okay, so JPX923 Hot Metal Pro in my hands. Now the difference between the Hot Metal Pro and the Hot Metal mainly is size. You've got the difference between top lines, soles, blade lengths, and also offset. Smaller in the Hot Metal Pro. Now it's not hugely different. We are not talking it's like hugely, it's now looking like a Tour iron, but when it comes to certain dimensions, it's actually quite close to the Forge. So in the Hot Metal Pro, there is it's a bit of a bridging club between that and the JPX923 Forge. So you could have the Forge in the lower irons, and when it comes to 4, 5, 6, you could do it in the Hot Metal Pro with some blending of gapping when it comes to lofts, etc. So it's a much nicer looking, much more pleasing to my eye kind of thing for me. I prefer the look of this. I do the full on, and then when it obviously comes to the high launch next, much bigger, different design. Right, let's go give this a hit, because when it comes to the JPX923 series now, they've done a lot of work when it comes to the technical side of it, trying to make it sound a certain way. Now everyone knows about the nothing feels like a Mizuno idea, and so they're putting a lot of effort into trying to make the acoustics of this thing as soft as possible, bearing in mind it is a cast, springy, very springy face. Right, let's go give this a hit a load of times and see how well this does. Right, so all the hitting now done with the Hot Metal Pro. Feeling wise, it feels identical to when it comes to the Hot Metal. Just because it's a smaller construction, you can't feel any difference when it comes to sound. They're identical. Considering it's a cast golf club, fairly soft sounding, but yeah. Right, let's go flick over to the Hot Metal High Launch, the largest one of the group, and let's see what this one's designed for, because the Hot Metal, game improvement, distance inspired iron, the Hot Metal Pro, game improvement, but aesthetically pleasing, smaller dimensions, etc. Going for more the player that wants a little bit more looks from their game improvement design. But then the Hot Metal High Launch. Hot Metal High Launch is a different beast completely, because it's designed for the people who want to get the golf ball up in the air because their swing speeds are lower. Let's go flick over. Hot Metal High Launch in my hands. Now this is new for the JPX range for 2023. Used to have Hot Metal Pro, Forged, and then the Tour. But because of this little wee thing, it's the Swing DNA tool, the shaft analyzer, basically. All the information that they've gathered from that, Mizuno have figured out there is a requirement for a slow swing speed club design, which basically assists getting the golf ball up in the air, because as soon as you get to a certain point, 75 miles an hour, give or take, or lower. Now, I have done a review of this full, again, up on there. But I've also done a different kind of weird one when it's comparing in loft between the JPX923 Hot Metal, the Hot Metal High Launch, and then the Tour. So we can have a discussion about, is it loft or actually technology, which helps. So again, click on that one because that's an interesting video. But so this is designed for the slower swinger. We'll keep it 80 miles an hour, give or take, for continuity purposes. But then on that one, I do test it at 75 miles an hour and show you the differences where this one shines through. And then also, the slower you go, this one is going to be shining more and more and more. Visuals very quickly. This is the thickest top line, definitely the thickest sole, biggest blade length, and a chunky amount of offset. This is designed to launch up in the air. So we're going to go give this one a hit now, see if it feels any different to the other two. The other two feel, well, out of all the JPX series, even going back to 825 and 800 and stuff like that, I've never known a JPX to feel as soft. But again, that's what Mizuno are doing when it comes to technology. Again, full review on my channel. Let's go give this monster a hit. Right, there all the hits done with the High Launch. Let's go have a flick over to the computer now. Let's go look at the numbers for the JPX Hot Metal series before we then look at the Forged and the Tour and see how they fit in. So let's very quickly have a look at the ball data that I've collected for the Hot Metal irons. If I put up on the screen now, you'll see that there's no real surprise that the Hot Metal and Hot Metal Pro ball speed is exactly basically the same, 111.2 to 111, because they're the same lofted iron, 28.5 degrees. But launch angle's fractionally higher in the Hot Metal, bigger golf club, lower further back CG, you're going to have that kind of correlation there. So it's going up at 27.4 yards against the 26.5, so a yard higher in the air, and descending slightly steeper as well from 43 to 42 degrees. But they're going the same distance within reason, within a yard or half a yard, depending rounding. That's no surprise. They are exactly the same golf club, just one looks a little bit better with thinner lines and stuff like that, so it will compromise fractionally the launch characteristics. But again, it's very, very similar, if not identical. If you look at the Hot Metal High Launch though, you'll now start seeing a slight reduction in ball speed. It is 31 degrees aloft now rather than 28.5, so you can that's natural. But look at the launch angle, near at 20 degrees now, 19.8. That is a substantial increase over the other two. Bear in mind, there's only what, 2.5 degrees between them. So yeah, going up at 29.1 yards rather than the highest of the Hot Metal at 27.4, so distinctly higher. That is a distinctly higher flight, and descending at 45 degrees. Remember, this is done at 80 miles an hour and carrying only 4 yards away. So you can see there, when it comes to the Hot Metal, even though it's the strongest one, the actual one, even at 8 miles an hour, the one that's performing arguably better would be the Hot Metal High Launch, because of the loft and because of all the help that the High Launch has got in it, basically to do one thing: get it going up. Right, so we have a look at the club head screen. That's basically all the information that I've captured. You can critique that to your heart's content. Pause the video, have a look at it. I'll put it up on there so you can, critique it. Go over to the compares. If you see, I've got the graphical representation there of the hot metal. If you then go over, add the hot metal pro, you can see within reason they're identical, but you're still going to get a slight difference in flight. The hot metal being the larger one, it's going to be the most forgiving and it's going to be the most helpful when it comes to out those two, getting the golf ball going up there. Bigger golf club, lower further back CG, you're going to get that. So there's a slight difference in flight, as you can see. And then as soon as you go to a hot metal high launch, you can see as soon as you add the yellow in there, it doesn't quite go as far. It's only 4 yards or so off, but it's going distinctly higher and it is going in steeper. So the main moral for this story is basically this: if you swing slow, don't be afraid of trying out the high launch, because the characteristics of the high launch head is going to give you that opportunity of getting the golf ball going up in the air. And it will be the most forgiving out of all of them, because not only has it got the size on its side, it's got all the JPX technology in it, and it's got loft as well. Right, let's go back to the simulator bay. Let's go hit it loads of times when it comes to Forge and the Tour and see how they compare to these three. JPX923 forged in my hands. Now this is the bridging iron, what I call the bridging iron anyway. Probably the most versatile of all the JPX range. Why? Because this can be blended with a lot of things. The Hot Metal Pro, when it can be, when this is the scoring irons, and then in the Hot Metal Pro or Hot Metal, for the more helpful side of things, 4, 5, 6, that kind of idea. This also can go into the Pro when it comes to the 225 or even the 223. Same or very, very similar tech, but slightly different lofting. So whenever it comes to doing these, you have to be a little bit careful with lofts and make sure that you get the lofts right, because there is a couple of degrees between the sets and stuff like that. But Mizuno do make a quite helpful little tool on their website. So if you want to do your own research, I'll pop up on the screen so you can see there. That helps you make a decision of what golf clubs you can blend with what and what you have to do with bending lofts, etc. So yeah, that's a good little tool. But yeah, it's the bridging iron. It's the most versatile of the lot. Now when it comes to the looks of this thing, it has got, compared to the JPX range, and also when it comes to the high launch just did, the top line now looks much thinner, the soles look much thinner, blade lengths are smaller, very much so like the Hot Metal Pro, but less offset, so it's much nicer to look at. The aesthetics of this thing is much nicer. So when it comes to the Hot Metal series, very, very little difference in feel, if any, between all of them. Remember, they are cast, so considering they are cast, they are possibly some of the quietest cast around. Right, let's go give this a hit a load of times and see how the Forge compares to the rest. Right, all the shots now hit the Forge. Forge definitely feels softer, feels much nicer to hit. When I say much nicer to hit, you go and cast and go to a Forged, it is a noticeable difference. Would it be like going from a cast to a blade? Not even close. So when I say noticeable difference, I think the difference between this one and the Hot Metal series is less than what it would be from this one to the Tour. Talk of the Tour, let's go give that a hit and see how that compares. JPX923 Tour in my hands, and yes, it is the smallest one of the bunch, and by some margin. I have a full review of this on my channel, up there, have a little click of that one after obviously watching this video. It is tiny, it's lovely. If it was chrome, it would be even nicer, but it's not. It's got that satin chrome look. Not much tech in this. Obviously, it's basically a blade. It's a player's cavity, you want to call it. It's not much cavity, but it's there. This has got copper underlay. This will feel lovely. It'll be the nicest sounding of all of the JPX, but bear in mind, it is the least forgiving. This one is going to be for the player, the person who hits the middle fairly well, or the high handicap golfer that hits it fairly well. Again, we're not just saying high handicappers have to have game improvement irons. Handicap around the idea and understanding of what kind of golf club you need to choose is kind of old school. Nowadays, it is much more understood that strike is by far the biggest thing. And if you struggle with strike, yes, by getting a game improvement iron, with it being a little bit more forgiving, shall we say, it's going to help you when you misstrike it. However, just saying that a high handicap golfer always misstrikes it and a low handicapper always doesn't misstrike it is wrong, because I have seen taught and custom fit many different golfers which do many different things contrary to the handicap. So if you're a decent sized handicap but you hit the middle fairly well, this is an option. This will blend, but not as easy because of the loft differences. There's 34 degrees when it comes to a 7-iron against 30 degrees when it comes to the forge. So you have to be a bit sort of sensible with how you bend stuff about. But yeah, right, let's go give this one a hit, because top lines are tiny, sole thicknesses are tiny, blade lengths are tiny, and offset is next to nothing. It does look very, very nice. Sounds different straight away. Okay, that's all the hitting done. Definitely softest, definitely the nicest one to hit, definitely the most unforgiving of all of them. So when it comes to hitting all the shots so far, it's between the hot metal and the hot metal high launch, which is going to be the most forgiving because of its size, and obviously the hot metal high launch has got loft on its favour as well. And then it progressively gets worse if you want to look at forgiveness wise as it gets smaller. And obviously, yeah, the Tour is the most unforgiving of the lot, but the nicest looking and also the nicest feeling. But let's go have a look at all the information now that I've collected, see what golf clubs are going to be suited to what kind of golf, what kind of speed, and if necessarily you could put one of these in your bag when it comes to getting fit for these, and which ones you should be thinking about blending. So let's go have a look at the numbers. We've got all the 5 irons on there now and critique exactly what the differences are between them. So we've done the first 3. We don't have to look at the first 3. The information is up on the screen, but we don't have to look at them. We're just going to compare now the Forge and the Tour. So you see the degradation in the ball speed. That's natural. As soon as you go to a Tour iron, say, it's got 34 degrees and very little help with technology in the head, it's going to be the slowest of the lot, 106.7. It will do. 110.5 for the Forged. That, again, is going with loft. The interesting thing for me is the launch angle. It's launching at 18.3. Considering there's only 1 degree of loft, static loft, between the Forged and the high launch, there's nearly 2 degrees or 1.5 degrees of launch angle difference between the hot melt high launch and the Forged. Why? It's a CG of the head when it comes to the high launch. The center of gravity is so much lower, and everything's designed in a high launch to launch it. So you would need more speed to be able to play a Forged over a high launch, because you're not going to get the height that you would do at the same kind of speed from a Forged you would do a high launch. And yes, it's peaking up at 27.3. It's going 159 yards, so it's 3 yards longer than the high launch, but descent angles are at 43.3, which aren't bad. But at this speed, 80 miles an hour, you aren't going to beat the functionality of the high launch. And the thing is with the high launch, the slower you go, 75 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour, it just gets better and better and better. The only thing for me with the high launch, because of it, it's just slightly bigger, which is not something that I personally like. But I'm a blade player. Other people, it's subjective. Different golfers, different requirements. When it comes to the Tour, this is very much so an iron that you're going to have to use if you have got speed and you hit the middle fairly well. It's got some forgiveness in it. It's not like a pure on blade, but it's near enough as close to a pure on blade. It's the smallest cavity you'll ever see. Now with that copper underlay you've got in there, it does feel like a proper Tour iron. It really, really does. But okay, it's launching the highest at 20.7 and it's going 28.9 yards in the air and 45.8 degrees descent angle. It's the most functional one here when it comes to that. However, it's only carrying 149 yards, so we're losing 12 yards peak between the longest and the shortest. At this speed, my pick out of this would be the high launch. From a pure functionality point of view, my pick when it comes to out of the 3 hot metals would be the Hot Metal Pro, because it's got the smallest lines. When it comes to the Forged is the bridging iron. It's the iron which can do many, many different jobs. It's the most versatile one of the lot. When it comes to a set, you can have, say, a Forged in the 8-9 pitching wedge and all that lot, and then when it comes to 4-5-6, you could have it in the Hot Metal Pro, or you could go with full on hot metal if you need a fraction more help. There's so many different things you can do with the Forged, or you can have a full set of Forged forged irons, there's no problem whatsoever. I've got the club head data on there, so you can pause the video if you wish and critique it to their heart's content. I've tried to keep it as fair as I possibly can do, and I do show my head data to prove whatever I'm saying is right, or again, I could just be saying it for saying its sake. Again, if you look at the graphical representation, you pop up on the screen there now, if I can get all that information up on one screen. The yellow one goes high compared to the, obviously, of the hot metals, it's the highest one. It descends the steepest as well, and it's only, what, 4 or so yards short, so that's my pick at this speed. Faster you go, then you can get away with forged and tour, because you can be bullying the ball through the air at that lower launch angle, because you've got more speed. And then you don't need the hot metal high launch, because the hot metal high launch will, at that speed at 90 miles an hour, so will then propel the golf ball too much up and not enough forward. So then, yeah, you could definitely move into different irons as soon as you understand the difference in speed and what speed makes. This all comes down to custom fitting, guys. You got to make sure you get custom fit, not just for shaft, not just for lie angle and stuff like that, which so many people talk about shafts and things like this. Center of gravity of the head and get the right head can make a massive difference. Married with the right shaft, yes, but it can make a massive difference to functionality and the performance of you hitting golf shots into greens, etc. So getting the right head is very, very important. There's some distinct differences between these 5 different heads that Mizuno now make in the JPX range. They now make sure that there is definitely never a head goes missing when it comes to understanding and making a choice about what you need. But yeah, the key is, guys, making sure you get a custom fit correctly for whatever you need. Right, hope you liked the video. If you did, go on thumbs up. YouTube's likes it, so do I. Down there's the subscribe button, it's free. It's great for the channel. If you could click on that, that'd be brilliant. And next to it is a bell icon. If you click that one, that's a notification bell, and that will notify you next time I upload another video. So I hope you're well, and we'll see you again soon.